Welcome to the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. The Empower Hour will provide information and support about mental health, substance use, and behavioral health. Our goal is to share inspiring stories about transforming lives, to strike down stigma, and to encourage our community to reach out and get help when needed. Mental health is part of all of our lives. It's time we talk about it. I'm Dr. Cynthia Whitaker, President and CEO of Greater Nashua Mental Health, and it's time to get empowered. Hello, and welcome to the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. I'm Dr. Cynthia Whitaker, and I have the privilege of being the President and CEO at Greater Nashua Mental Health. Today's episode of Empower Hour is all about the symptom of psychosis. We're going to be talking about some myths, some facts, and a program that we have at Greater Nashua Mental Health to support those who are experiencing psychosis for the first time. So I'm excited today to have with me Heather Carver, who is our coordinator of our first episode psychosis program at Greater Nashua Mental Health. Welcome to the show, Heather.
Thank you, Cynthia.
So, Leah, like I said in the intro, I'd love to just start a little bit with maybe who you are, and the program that you oversee. And then we'll jump into just some facts, myths, and things about psychosis.
Absolutely. So I'm Heather Carver. I have been with the first episode psychosis program for about almost 2 years now. And I think as far as something about me, I want to see change in the world. I want to take away stigma about mental health and anything else associated that people just don't understand, and try and help people embrace everyone.
So you're a therapist by training.
Yes.
And so you do some therapy as part of your role, but what else do you do as part of your role?
So I do some individual therapy working with our specific individuals we work with, but I also provide the family therapy. So I get to work very closely with the family and loved ones and support systems that surround the individuals that are part of our program. And to me, that's a big part of it. The better the support that somebody can get at home and across the board with the consistency, that can make a gigantic difference in the outcome.
So there's so much already there, right? So the outcome, the family involvement. So part of the program, we have a special name for it called the HOPE program, Help Overcoming Psychosis Early, right? Did I get that right? I feel like it would have been a failed test if I hadn't said it right.
You got it right. Helping Overcome Psychosis Early. You got it.
Awesome. Then part of that program recognizes, A, that people have better outcomes if they get support right away, and then B, what that support needs to look like to best support those outcomes. So whatever you want to talk about in either of those situations, pick one and go for it.
So what was say the first one again for me?
Just that there are better outcomes or prognosis for folks if they get treatment early.
Exactly. And I feel like that's something that, people, maybe they're hearing this for the first time with the symptom of psychosis, but it's similar to what I think we've heard a lot more in the news the last 10, 15, 20 years with autism. So, once again, the earlier that you have somebody diagnosed, the sooner that you're able to recognize those symptoms, the sooner you can start working on making changes, because that's what we're doing. We're helping in a myriad of ways, one of which is helping an individual to develop new patterns of behavior, develop new ways of cognitive restructuring, how they're thinking about things. And so the earlier we do that, the better the likelihood. Additionally, the sooner you do it, the sooner you're breaking that chain of history of reinforcement of that behavior, right? So sooner the better, always.
Always. Because I do think, like, if we went back, even to my training, I think about, things I heard, like psychosis, oh, you're right, oh, that's such a terrible symptom. And, it's like, oh, you're doomed to always have negative outcomes. And yet we know that that's not true at all. I mean, in fact, there are many folks who have the symptom that might not even have a formal diagnosis of things that we might hear about, like schizophrenia or other diagnoses that have psychosis as a symptom. Sometimes people just have the symptom of psychosis.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. So, and I agree with you. I think that's one of the hard parts with it is the misunderstanding around the diagnosis. You know, people hear psychosis and they start thinking of, you know, scary movie that has the similar name, or it's unfair and it's unfortunate. And I don't think anyone does it on purpose, but it's the lack of knowledge. It's the lack of understanding of exactly what it means to be experiencing psychosis. Because there is a significant success for the individuals. You know, many of them have gone on to have the lives they've wanted, even surprised some of us and had even more than we would have expected. So I wish that people would recognize that there is still, well, hope.
There is hope,
Yep.
exactly. So when you're describing psychosis to an individual or a family member who may have kind of this misinformation, like how do you describe it? What sorts of things do you talk about with an individual or a family?
So there's a few different things I talk about. I think the big one that I focus on a lot of times is understanding consensus reality. So I explain to the family and the individual that we all are experiencing consensus reality. You and I are experiencing the same thing, right? We both look here, we can see a table. Somebody that's experiencing psychosis, they may be seeing a dog in the corner that none of us are seeing. Now, just because we can't see it, though, doesn't make it any less real for that individual. And so having that understanding and respect that even if we know it's not happening in all of our reality, it is real for that person. They are experiencing it. And so how do we recognize that and help support them as they start to differentiate between what is actually occurring where we can all see it and what is just in their mind, so that they can cope and move forward and redirect and not focus on that.
So part of the treatment is understanding that difference.
Yeah.
And learning what skills to use to help in those moments.
Exactly. You know, we have several different parts of the program, one of them being, you know, the medication management, which for psychosis can be a very, very large component. But exactly, learning coping skills, learning how to redirect, you know, how do you, if you think you keep hearing voices talking in the back of your head, and you're trying to focus on what your teacher's saying in class, let's figure out how you're going to do that. What's a good coping skill for you? How can we direct? How can we get your attention back on the teacher? So, but it's going to obviously be different for each person. For a student, it's different. For somebody that's in the field, it's different. What's going to work for them?
So it's really individually based, focusing on what the person needs, what they're experiencing, rather than some cookie cutter, here's what we do treatment, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's the same for everyone, you know, and in so many different areas. Even you look at school and there's a general idea of what you should be learning, but how each kid learns is so differently. And I think that as time has gone on, we've recognized that more and embraced it. And it's the same thing with this. Is like, what's your coping skill? What your coping skill isn't going to be my coping skill. Right. So let's find the effective one. Which one's going to be effective for you? Which one's going to be effective for me? And now let's develop that.
And let's have hope that we'll find one that works, right? Instead of giving up, or if one works in one situation, it might not work in another situation, but still embracing it for where it does work.
Exactly. And constantly being willing to reevaluate your coping skill. You know, like you said, you know, one day it might work, the next day it doesn't. Okay, how come it's not effective? Well, what should we try instead? What do you think would be effective for you? But always keeping in mind, maybe that'll be effective again in a different situation. So, exactly.
So we talked about your role. It includes family therapy. So the program, or what's been shown to work for people kind of in this early stage, includes what? So it includes individual work, family work. So tell me what happens.
So there's so many different components, and it depends on where an individual is when they come to us. But I would say, so individual resiliency therapy is the specific therapy that we use with first episode psychosis, and it is specified to what the individual's goals are. So if we want to help an individual engage in services with us, if we want them to want to work with us, we need to focus on their goals. So usually when we meet them, I tell them, if your goal is to be a tightrope walker, okay, I'm going to help you work. I'm not going to do it with you, but I will help you get there. You want to be a boxer? Okay. Because in order to get to that goal, there are so many mini goals and mini tasks that we're going to set that are going to be helping them to learn how to cope with and live with this diagnosis and overcome it. So taking their goal and kind of working backwards, you know, like, how do we get there? Well, you're going to need to do this, you're going to need to do that. And we have the medication management, which is a very big component for a lot of individuals. A lot of this, you can have coping skills and you can redirect, but sometimes medications can help quiet down the symptoms for some individuals. Some people mentioned that they had heard voices very loud, and maybe it's more like a whisper after the medication. It takes a while to find the right level. So we have the medication management, giant component. We have the individual resiliency therapy. And then we have the family therapy, which is what I do. And, like what I touched on before, basically, I'm there to help support the family, make sure that they have all of the knowledge possible to know exactly what the loved one is experiencing, how they can best help them. And sometimes I'll even have family therapy where the individual is there as well. Sometimes I just can be there to assist in communication. Maybe there's something that the client's been trying to explain to them and they're just not hearing them, so I can help out with, okay, let's work through this together. Let's try and make sure we're all on the same page. And then we have, some of the other regular stuff that we have at GNMH, which is also great. We have the InShape program, so we can help get people, active, getting healthy. A lot of individuals have isolated or maybe withdrawn from doing things, so InShape can kind of get them out there, get them moving. Supported employment. For individuals, if we can get them back out into the community, have them feeling successful, feeling functional, feel like they're accomplishing something. That's a gigantic component of success as well, right? Just feeling like you're doing what you want to be doing, what you should be doing every day with your life. I think those are the big parts of it. Obviously, case management, support with all that stuff.
So folks who join the program, because not everybody does or wants to, but there is, I think, an expectation that family will be involved. And that's because it's based on research, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. Better outcomes when you have families involved. And so we do try. And sometimes we have individuals whose family isn't interested in being involved, or the individual isn't interested in having the families involved. And I would never turn them away for that. But what I do hope to do is, as I continue to build rapport with them and continue to get them to know that they can trust us, we're here for them, exploring with them. Do you think that this is anything now that you know more about our program that might help your family? Or do you feel like it's hard to talk to your family about what you're experiencing? Would this be helpful for you if we sat with them together, or would you like me to talk to them? And a lot of people end up coming around. A lot of people, once they realize what our program is, they're like, oh, well, this isn't nearly as scary as I thought it was going to be. Maybe this would be helpful.
Yeah, because I think one of the things I've learned too is that in the program there's a little flexibility. Like certainly there's family therapy, like what people might typically think about when they think about family therapy. So thinking about the dynamics and what is it like having an individual with this diagnosis or this symptom in the family dynamic, what does that look like? But a lot of what you're doing is more general too, and what we might call family education.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think you're right. Probably a better way of putting it. It's a combination of things, right? I'm supporting, but I'm also educating, and additionally helping connect the family with other resources that are out there that can support them as well. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I fill the role. I meet them where they're at. I meet them where they need me. So.
Well, and I think that's what helps people open up to it, right? Because again, people have this idea, they hear therapy and think, oh, we're going to do this, mom-kid thing. And it's like, well, it might not even be about the individual. It might just be about helping the family understand or learn tips or tricks for them, right? Not even necessarily about the person.
Exactly. It's a very hard thing, and I think especially for parents, a lot of times, I don't know about you, but sometimes struggling with the autonomy of my children, and respecting that they can make choices. And sometimes that's a hard part for the family too, is recognizing that sometimes as parents we know what's best for our child. Sometimes we have to wait for them to figure it out. And so sometimes that's one of the biggest things I support them with, is how do you work through that, which you would have with individuals that aren't experiencing psychosis. It's a hard thing to... It's
about being a parent,
It
right?
is. It's so hard. It's like, I know what would be good. I can't make you do that.
Right. Well, and if I do, just like with a child who doesn't have a symptom, right, then we might have someone who complies, but then internally is upset or angry. And then the minute we're not there as a parent, they're not willing to comply. And like, how do we take that? What we know to be true of parenting in general also applies to when we have a child, an adult child, whatever level of relationship we're at. But the same thing still applies.
Yeah, exactly.
Forcing, demanding, requiring has a time limit. It might work when kids are really young, but as kids are developing developmentally and as they're becoming young adults, it doesn't work to bring about the best outcome.
No, and I'm so glad you said that, because that brings up a good point with our program, is that it is voluntary. Nobody is forced to be a part of this program, and exactly for what you said, if somebody is forced to do it, what are they actually getting out of it? You know, they'll comply for a certain period of time. At some point, they may realize, I don't need to comply. I get to make my own choice. Otherwise, they may actually see everything we're advising them on or supporting them with as serving a purpose other than their own. How long are you going to continue to engage in something if you think that it absolutely serves no good for you? Especially with what these individuals have gone through. You know, they want to get back to their lives, and if they think this isn't going to help them because they feel like they have to do it, we're going to lose them. And
Right.
I'd rather keep them and keep working with them and make sure we're focusing on what they're looking for.
Which is why you start with what their goal is, and the individualizing of a program, any program, really, that we have is for that very reason. And you know, maybe along the way somebody figures out, oh, maybe being a tightrope walker, to use your example, isn't actually for me. But think of all the skills they learned along the way versus if we had started with you can't, right?
Yep, exactly. Or, oh, well, that doesn't sound like a good goal, being a tightrope walker. Let's pick something. You should be a teacher. You know, like, no, I'm not motivated to be a teacher, but you are right. A lot of times along the way it changes. How many of us changed our mind 100 times of what we were going to do? And so we just roll with it. You know, oh, you don't want to do tightrope anymore. You want to ride camels. Okay, all right, we're gonna go with that. You want to be a roller skater. Okay, whatever their motivation is, that's what's going to push them the most to engage and to make the biggest difference in their lives.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for all of us to learn that skill. I think of just the way we're wired as humans, like for our own self-safety, that we tend to judge other people, and it's so easy to say, oh, you should do this or you should do that, or you can't act like that in public, or instead of really coming alongside somebody and hearing it from their point of view, or seeing what they're seeing and saying, okay, how can I help you through this? Or what do you most want as the outcome from this?
Exactly. It reminds me of a saying somewhere, it might have been Helen Keller, but looking in the same direction together. You know, that's working together, is make sure you're both looking in the same direction, not that I'm looking and I hope you look where I'm looking. So absolutely, I agree.
So tell me, you sort of alluded to some positive outcomes from the program. Like what? Because I do think there's a lot of stigma, and a lot of people think, oh, once somebody with psychosis is in our system or in a program, they're forever in our system and in our program, and that's not true. You've had folks graduate, you've had folks be successful, so I'd love to hear a story or two.
Oh, goodness. I mean, there's a thing, so how do we define success? We have individuals that have graduated and gone on to have a life that I would love, that I think most people would. They have graduated from college. They have gone into their chosen field. They've gotten married. To me, that in itself is what a wonderful success story. You get to have the life that you wanted to have for yourself. But then we have some big ones. We have one individual who was in the program that graduated, that had moved to New York and I believe is finishing up law school. So it is amazing how that's even beyond anything I would imagine for me. Sky's the limit. There's no reason that this diagnosis has to hold anybody back. And so I try and share some of the success stories with the hope that people will recognize, why not me? There's no reason why I can't reach my goals and do what I want to do with my life still. But that's a big one. That was a big one for me. When I first heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, law school, that is amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of having the supported employment and education be part of the program, right? Is we're not waiting for somebody to quote unquote be well before we start talking about that they can pursue more education or a career. We're talking to them right through the program about where do they want to be? What steps do they need to take? Or what's the next right step, right? Maybe it's not that big giant dream, but maybe it's what's the next step to get to it.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and that is a perfect way of looking at it, and that's how we try and look at it with them. We just had a conversation with an individual within the last week that was setting a very specific goal by a very specific date, and so we kind of back up and say, well, hold on a second. Are you setting yourself up for failure? What if something you're not expecting in your life comes up and you can't attain that? So let's make this attainable. Let's make sure this is attainable, and we're going to reevaluate in just a month and see, are we still on track for that? Do we need to readjust? So, absolutely breaking it down into small attainable chunks, and making sure that people realize that this diagnosis doesn't mean you can't get somewhere, but just like we all do, let's take little steps to get to our big goals.
Yeah, well, right. Exactly. You just like what we all do. Yeah. And I think that for me is like, that's a big piece of the stigma and the conversation that we're having is, I mean, any mental health diagnosis, any mental health symptom, person with autism, anxiety, depression, psychosis, it doesn't matter. Right? We're all still at the core human beings who really have the same kinds of things that motivate us, the same traps that trap us, the same things. And so, how do we talk to one another with that the same way we would want to be talked to?
Exactly. And I think how you put it is perfect. Not just autism, but mental health. Everything's on a spectrum. You can see, a little bit of this and a little bit of that with all of us. Some of us have a touch of anxiety. Maybe we just get nervous driving on a bridge. Some of us are terrified to leave our house. It's still a spectrum. I'm still able to have an understanding of what anxiety might feel like for you. Maybe not to the intensity, maybe not understanding why this affects you. But yeah, looking at it as a spectrum. Even with psychosis, one of the things we talk about when we're talking with families and even when I'm presenting to new individuals that are working at GNMH is the idea that we all kind of experience psychosis too. That's also a spectrum. If you ever were, living at home, maybe you thought you heard your mom call you and you went, "Hey mom, what's up? I didn't call you." That's psychosis. It's your brain taking in information, trying to make sense of what it is that it's hearing, and it makes its best logical jump to what it is. Or if you think you hear a car door slam, maybe you were expecting someone coming over, you go and look, there's no car there. That's psychosis, but it's part of a healthy brain. It's just your brain processing information and trying to make the best logical understanding of that information with what it knows.
Right, and then what happens is in some brains, that normal thing that happens gets a little out of whack.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. It's not processing the information the same way. Maybe it's not taking in the information the same way. It's hard to say because there's so much that's still unknown about what causes this. Where does this come from? What is it impacting in a person's mind? But I think that sometimes can help for the families in relating with them. Oh, okay, I have had that experience happen, and even though I'm not having it to this degree, yeah, I really thought my mom called me. So this is how they're feeling all the time. They think it's real. Yes, absolutely.
Right, and that's that difference between it's real for me versus the consensus reality. That difference is so important for people to understand, right? That that old cliche of it's all in your head, it doesn't mean it doesn't feel real to me.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yes, it's in my head, but my head makes me feel like it's real. My nervous system still acts as if it is truly happening. All of those things are still real.
Exactly. That's so perfect how you put it, because if somebody sees a dog in the corner and they're feeling terrified, their heart rate's going to go up. Maybe they'll start to break out in a sweat. Their body's doing all those things that it does, right, to prep us for fight or flight. Even though the dog's not there for the rest of us, but they're experiencing all that. And so we don't want to undermine that experience. We don't want to tell them, nope, sorry, it's not real. They are experiencing it. Let's support what they're feeling as opposed to questioning what they're seeing. Let's support what they're feeling. How do we work through that? I know you feel scared right now. Let's work through it together. Let's talk about this.
Right. Well, all that's in my head are like that do nots, like don't just say, just calm down. There's not really a dog there.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's not in our control, right? The autonomic nervous system is unconscious, right? It's happening to us based on our thoughts and our emotions, our beliefs. And so we can't just calm down, right? In the same way, I can't just calm down like if I were afraid of spiders and there was one walking across the table, right? I'm going to have a reaction to that. Telling me to just calm down, it's just a spider, doesn't help.
Exactly.
Saying something more reassuring like, I know you're experiencing that right now. How might I help you in this moment? Find a way to calm down, right? Is much different than what sometimes we tend to do.
Exactly. And I think it's relatable to, as time has gone on, we've been so much more open in our society about talking about depression and talking about anxiety. And, the same idea stands. You would never tell someone snap out of it. Oh, you're depressed, snap out of it. Go do this, that. Psychosis isn't that much different. We're not going to turn them and be like, snap out of it. No, but so sometimes I hope that individuals that understand depression and anxiety, where we have such a great understanding of that, maybe they can start looking at the fact that psychosis and other diagnoses is not that much different. We can't just tell them, get over this, do that, whatever. You have to work on it. But it doesn't change that you're a human being that's experiencing things and deserves to have respect and support.
And for me, and for holding out hope. Right. I mean, we were talking about sometimes people change their goals along the way, or people become open to their family being involved. We've seen people that were very adamant against medication become, all right, well, if it'll help me do this, I'll give it a whirl, or that are open to an experiment of it or a pilot, trial of it when maybe they hadn't been. And so we're always holding out hope that, if it doesn't work this time, maybe the next time.
Exactly. Yep. We never give up. And that's one of the things that we say to the families, to our new recruits at GNMH. That's part of the beauty of it being called the Hope Program, is that we never give up. There will always be hope. There is never a final, that's it, never going to go past this. You could never get better than this. We never do that. And just because someone says, I refuse to do this now, we don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. We don't know what's going to happen in 9 months. We're going to continue to work with them, support, build relationships with them, with the hope that somewhere along the line something will click for them and they'll go, wow, I know you wouldn't be telling me this unless it was actually important. It would help me. Maybe I need to step back and think about it again. So never giving up hope, though. That's the big one.
Yeah, I love that. It's so important. I think as long as we're living and breathing, right, there's always hope. I can think of many examples in my life of, people getting married in their 70s or 80s to the love of their life for the first time, or, people changing careers, finding their best career in their 40s or 50s, or, right? As long as we're living and breathing, there's change, there's hope, there's adaptability. Sometimes it's just about finding what feels right or fits right for us in that moment.
Exactly. I think I had read somewhere every 7 or 8 years, every cell in our body has been replaced, something just phenomenal. And I was thinking, so too do our goals change. So too does what works for us. Like you said, what feels right in one moment might not feel right in 8 years. Maybe my cells are going, no, I don't want that. I want to be a roller skater. And so being okay to roll with the punches, go with the changes, and embrace that, because there is no, never. There's no, nope, nothing's ever going to change at this point forward. You never know what's around the next corner.
Right.
And that goes for every individual, not just individuals struggling with psychosis, Get ready for the things that might be waiting around the corner. Don't be scared of it. Be excited. Be ready to embrace it, because there might be something really exciting you don't even know is coming.
Yeah, one of the things I've learned in therapy, parenting, leadering, life, every aspect of everything is sometimes the desire to control the outcome, right? I want what's best for my kid. I want what's best for the organization, actually stifles the best outcome.
Exactly.
Because we think we know what's best or right or good. And so then we finagle the process to get to that thing instead of allowing the process to emerge the way it's meant to get to potentially an even better outcome that we could not even see. And we're trained to do that as therapists, right? To hold that space, to trust that process. But as human beings, it can be hard. And I think that's part of the gift you give families is, going along on that journey with their loved one.
Exactly. And I think that's perfect, not pigeonholing. Let's not set something in stone that this is as far as we're going to shoot to aim for, because you're right. we never know what somebody's abilities are or what might come up as a possibility for them. So that has to be their decision. You know, what we might think is right maybe isn't nearly as much as that person is capable of doing. So let's let them set for the stars if that's what they want, and we're just going to support them along the way.
Yeah, I can think of many examples of family members, like, later on in the process saying things like, I never imagined we'd get here. And that doesn't undermine how hard the journey is in the middle, because it can be really tough. And that's why families, people need support and understanding. And I mean, I know we offer folks referrals to other places for support. Like, we partner with NAMI a lot, where families can receive support, understand from other families what the journey might be like. In ways that, you know, we can't always, or especially if the individual doesn't want the family involved in their treatment. If they're an adult, they get that choice. That's maybe a way for families to get support. What have you found from that partnership or providing that support for families?
So as far as connecting with NAMI, so to speak, so first of all, NAMI is amazing. They are absolutely incredible, and I suggest it to every family that I work with, even if they're not sure that they want to do any of the, you know, group support. I'm still like, hey, just so you know, it's here. I think that it makes a tremendous difference because, like you said, I can sit and I can talk about what their loved one is experiencing. And maybe I've had experiences, you know, with my own loved ones in different ways, but I haven't experienced this exactly, what they're experiencing. So connecting them with other families that are going through it, I think there's a whole bunch of things that are great there. First of all, you're not alone. Second of all, they help you feel like, okay, these thoughts and these worries are acceptable. These are normal. Because how many times do we second guess, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be worrying about this, or oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right. And somebody else can go, I've had the same thoughts, you know. Additionally, with with NAMI, sometimes they're connecting with families that have already been going through this for a while. And sometimes they have some knowledge and some expertise and just the ability to understand, this is where you're coming from. Let me tell you where you could end up at some point. Giving them hope again. So it really does kind of circle back to that a lot.
Yeah, for me, it's such a great side-by-side partnership, right? Because a lot of what we do at the mental health center in general is very confidential, right? And so we don't tell somebody, you know, oh, so-and-so is experiencing that too, right? We don't say those things. And sometimes we'll say, you're not alone. Many people experience this, but that's much different than hearing the stories of other people experiencing it. And so if nothing more, connecting even online to just some of the resources and the things for people to know for real, they're not alone, to read other people's stories, to see other people's stories.
Exactly.
Just so helpful to folks.
It is. It's absolutely incredible. I think it makes a gigantic difference, and we continue to explore to see what else is out there. NAMI has been fantastic in actually connecting us with other resources that we hadn't been aware of. Hearing Voices is an online meeting, and it's wonderful because the only individuals that are allowed to attend this online meeting are people that have experienced these symptoms. So mental health therapists are not going to be there. You know, your mom and dad aren't going to be there. Everybody there is not going to judge you because they've experienced the same thing. A lot of people, I think that's the hardest part, is feeling like you're surrounded by people that don't understand. You can go into this meeting and you know everybody gets it. Everybody's
so it's called Hearing Voices, and it's a mutual support group for people who experience psychosis only.
Exactly.
Yeah, beautiful. A lot of good resources. Again, to help people know they're not alone, and there's no needing to feel like you got to wear a mask or explain things or anything like that in that situation.
Exactly. You know, I've had, you know, heard some of the stories, just somebody being able to say, sorry, I didn't hear what you were saying. My voices were talking. Can you say it again? Just being able to say that openly and not feel like you're going to get judged and somebody, oh, okay, yeah, that happens sometimes. Let me repeat what I said. And I remember hearing that, you know, from someone sharing a story, and I loved that. I just love the ability to just be completely open with what you're experiencing and you're not worried at all.
Yeah, wouldn't it be amazing if there was that level of compassion and understanding in our world that in any situation, somebody could say such a thing without judgment?
It'd be so incredible. How many things do we do because we're scared we're going to get judged? You know? So taking a step back and just saying, let's just be us. no judgment. Can you imagine?
Yeah, it'd be phenomenal.
Yeah.
So what's one or two takeaways you hope people watching here, or whether it's about the program or about psychosis in general?
So one big one always is that I want people to know that there is a program that's out there, that's available, that can help support individuals and help them have the best outcomes. So first episode psychosis, the HOPE program, here in New Hampshire, there's nationwide programs as well. So just being aware that there is hope, that it's out there. I think additionally though, one of the big ones is reducing the stigma for me. I think that is gigantic. I think that makes it even more scary for people to admit that they're having these experiences. So we might have someone having the start of these experiences and they're so terrified to go and tell anyone that we don't end up finding out about it until they've had a full first-blown, episode of psychosis. Well, if they had felt comfortable talking earlier, what could we have done? Once again, we're catching it before it even became a crisis point. If we reduce the stigma, maybe people won't be so scared about saying, I think I'm hearing something that nobody else is responding to, or I think I'm seeing something that no one else is seeming to see. Support them at that moment. So reducing stigma, getting the word out into the community, and knowing that the program is there. I think those are the big ones, and that there's hope.
There is hope. Yeah, it makes me think, like, how might we create spaces of safety inside of schools, doctors' offices, places where people might first have that conversation if only they felt they could, or for people to observe things and to be able to ask a question in a non-judgmental way about that difference between consensus reality or an individual reality, right? Having that language to ask a question in a less judgmental way.
Exactly.
What a great thing to hope for.
Absolutely. And just getting it talked about, right? The more that people know about it, the less scary it is, the more likely they will talk about it. So just getting it part of the normal conversation.
Well, I deeply appreciate what you do, coordinating our program and working with the therapists and case managers, Port Employment, the whole team. And just being you and that positivity of holding the hope, because certainly we need leaders that lean into this way of being compassionate and caring for individuals. So I appreciate that deeply. And I know we could talk about all kinds of things more deeply, but today was really just to get people thinking about, there is hope. And the earlier we can get folks talking about it, the earlier we can get folks into a program like this that's designed specifically to help individuals, the more likely there is a positive outcome on the other side, whatever that might look like for a given individual.
Exactly. I appreciate the opportunity so much, so thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for watching the Empower Hour with Greater Nashua Mental Health. Have an empowered day.